On this edition of Southern Newsweek, Dunedin's Christmas parade is cancelled due to COVID-19 restrictions. A South Dunedin house infested with spiders for a fundraising Halloween party. And competitors take part in this year's grueling swimming and paddling race around White Island. Kia ora, good evening, I'm Melissa Barton. The government is pressing ahead with its controversial reform of water management, despite widespread opposition. And it's not expected to be smooth sailing for the government, with Dunedin City councillors among those who have raised concerns about the plan.
There are many rivers to cross for the government's new mandated Three Waters scheme. It'll create 4 publicly owned entities to manage drinking water, wastewater and stormwater across Aotearoa. But local government minister Nanaia Mahuta has ditched the voluntary sign-up option for councils, drawing the ire of a former supporter.
It's extremely disappointing today to learn that our community has been denied the opportunity to participate in this conversation and be a part of this decision.
Ironically, Dunedin Mayor Aaron Hawkins is blaming staunch opposition to the Three Waters reforms for forcing the government's hand.
There have been elements both inside and outside of local government that have created a level of discourse that has been toxic and divisive, and on the back of that it's hard to see how the government had very many other options open to it at this point.
Minister Mahuta says today's announcement reinforces the government's commitment to delivering clean drinking water and fixing and upgrading water-related infrastructure. Dunedin City Councillor Jim O'Malley will continue to fight the plan, which he sees as similar to the electricity reforms of the 90s.
When people are considering what they're looking at here, look back at that time where the same statements were made about inefficiencies and efficiencies to be gained with aggregation, and in the end we didn't get any of that to come through. So all I see is a risk for privatisation and probably no gain in the process.
And he's angry the government ignored feedback to the proposal, given nearly all councils oppose it. Minister Mahuta claims 43 of 67 councils don't even have enough revenue to pay for their standard services, let alone maintaining infrastructure. The reforms are estimated to cost taxpayers $185 billion over the next 30 years. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A family home in South Dunedin has been overrun by huge spiders. But there's no cause for alarm. The scary arachnids are actually props for a Halloween event, raising money for charity.
Welcome to Kirstine McLeay-Knopp's spooky home in the Dunedin suburb of St Kilda. Her family's been busy decorating their house with 8-legged creepy crawlies as part of this year's Halloween theme.
I think it was 3 years ago we did ancient Egypt, so we had mummies and things. And then last year we had Day of the Dead. I think 4 years ago we had Pumpkin Palace, so we had pumpkins everywhere. So this year we're gone with the spider theme.
For the last 3 Halloweens, she's opened her home to the public, this year getting some extra volunteers to help out creating all the props.
These little spiders here are all made out of rubbish sacks, and I actually got the idea of them from the kids making poi at school. So we made like the body like a poi, but then we made the head into another round shape and put pipe cleaner legs to make spider legs.
This Sunday's Halloween party will be open to the public as a special fundraiser, including a night market to raise funds towards sponsoring refugees for resettlement.
That's a community effort, so it's not Red Cross or another organisation like that. It's groups of individuals can get together and form a charity and sponsor a family, and you can actually choose which family, or you can have them chosen for you by UNHCR.
The Halloween night market, including food created by Syrian refugees now living here, is on this coming Sunday at 21 Royal Crescent. In Dunedin, the South Today.
And COVID-19 has claimed another victim, Santa Claus. The jolly man himself won't make it through MIQ in time for this year's Santa Parade in Dunedin.
Santa and his friends won't be parading down Dunedin's main street this festive season.
And it brings the whole family together, and going through the main street and seeing the families and Grandma sitting in their seat and the parents around them and the children, and getting so much joy out of seeing that Santa parade. And that's such a sorry part of it.
The team at South Dunedin's Rainbow Christian Preschool understand the organisers' decision, even though it'll be the first time they haven't taken part in 2 decades.
Started way back about 20 odd years ago, and there was 2 educational ladies out from the educational board, and we had a service in the church, and I had one side of a Noah's Ark, and they suggested to Wendy Ann, my daughter, this would be great in the Christmas procession.
As he's in his mid-80s, Warren Popper Ockwell understands it has to be safety first when dealing with COVID-19.
It's a shame, but it's nice to keep it away from this end of the country.
Santa Parade Trust Chairwoman Michelle Elwood says they're all very disappointed. Around 40,000 people watching last year's event. It's hoped other regional Christmas parades in Otago and Southland, including Waimaru, Gore and Invercargill, will still be able to go ahead. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A vessel more familiar to the Seven Seas flaunted its sail at this year's White Island race. The pirate canoe was one of many to make its way around White Island in the gruelling event for Dunedin's surf lifeguards.
Underwater and under pressure, swimmers, surfers and even a few pirates descended on St Clair Beach over Labour weekend for the annual White Island race. This was the 52nd year of the popular event, and while COVID-19 threatened to impact the event, organisers have managed to keep it going.
It's never been cancelled, so we're stoked today that we could get it done, obviously under the COVID climate, 100 limit of people at events, so yeah, really awesome to get it done. Wide range of events have happened, some stormy days, some nice days like today, so yeah, I think everyone's pretty happy they're a part of it.
It's one of the toughest events on the local surf life-saving calendar, with more than 70 people joining in this year's event. Lucy Matahaere was the fastest female competitor, taking just over 29 minutes to complete the course. Will Jamieson was only slightly quicker to win the men's section. Burrow says the race is a good warm-up for athletes ahead of the summer season.
They want to be involved in the surf community, and this is the way to start the season. Our patrols start next weekend and they go through to March. Each club will average around 2,000 volunteer hours throughout the season, So a lot of mahi goes into keeping our beaches safe. So I guess this symbolises the start of the season.
An almost perfect end to a perfect day. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Coming up after the break on Southern Newsweek, the Otago Nuggets basketball coach gets a new day job, and 40 years of growing Pinot Noir is celebrated at Gibbston Valley. Welcome back. Life's a beach for Otago Nuggets head coach Brent Matahaere. The basketballer is retiring from his day job as a school teacher to hit the sand in a new surf life-saving role.
Checking out his new workplace, Otago Nuggets coach Brent Matahaere's no stranger to the beach, having been involved in surf lifesaving for over 20 years.
Been a competitor, an official, competed in IRBs and sand events and canoes and so on. So, yeah, been involved for a long time.
Now he's taking on a new role as Club Development Officer for Otago Surf Lifesaving. That's meant calling time on his 22-year career as a teacher at Otago Boys High School. For the past 2 years, Matahaere's been able to take a term off teaching to focus on his coaching duties with the Otago Nuggets. The team finished 6th in this year's NBL, but were named Club of the Year in their first season back in the full league.
Yeah, I thought we put on a good spectacle. We obviously came up short, as a coaching staff and players, not making the playoffs, but we had a really good start, and I think it's one we can learn from and build from there.
And while it's too early to start signing players for 2022, he's keen to continue the focus on promoting Otago talent.
Definitely. I mean, obviously we want to build around Otago players. I thought we did a good job with Sammy last year, and obviously raising his profile, and he's picked up an ANBL contract with the Breakers.
Sand and surf will be part of his life over the coming summer before he heads back indoors to focus on the hoops with the Nuggets. In Dunedin, the South Today.
40 years ago, Alan Brady had a shot at planting one of the first vineyards in central Otago. Little did he know that his few rows of grapes would kickstart the huge wine-growing industry that dominates much of the landscape today.
In the early 1980s, Alan Brady planted a number of different varieties of grapes on 6.5 hectares of land he'd bought at Gibbston near Queenstown, in the hope the central Otago climate might suit winemaking.
82, I planted from the top right down to as far as you can see down there, in Mullaturgo, which was what everybody was growing in New Zealand at the time. I didn't have a tractor. I hired a young guy, a university student at Christmas, to hand hoe. And he started up there, and it's pre-Christmas, and by Christmas he got down there. By that time, the weeds, the fat hen mainly weeds, were waist high at the top. He never came back after Christmas.
It was mostly by luck that he stumbled on the grape variety of Pinot Noir, which eventually became a success. Chief winemaker Christopher Keys acknowledges it must have taken a lot of effort to coax the early plantings into producing grapes.
Alan probably knew them all by name. Like they're the kind of individual characters of their own right, and that's the thing. I mean, all our vineyards have different characters, and we love them in different ways, but this one just has a very deep tap root into this company's heart and soul.
Now 85, Brady says he didn't really imagine winemaking vineyards taking over central Otago.
I wasn't thinking that far ahead. It was one day at a time. We were learning. I mean, I planted some grapes knowing nothing about how grapes grew, really, apart from the little bit I'd read. So you learn by watching and listening to nature and learning from season to season. And every season we learn something. 40 years on, I'm still learning.
And the name Gibbston is now associated with an annual summer music festival.
When I was tending these vines out here in the early 80s, I was listening to music that today is being played down the valley by those same bands at the Gibbston concert. Now that's one amazing thing for me, to go to the Gibbston concert and listen to bands that I was from the 80s and 90s that I was listening to when I was tending vines here. I never would have believed that. And it's the same kind of feeling that I have about how far we've come.
Near Queenstown, the South Today.
And other Gibbston Valley winemakers are regularly winning accolades overseas. One success story is Valley Wine, where local winemaker Jen Parr has now won 5 trophies for her Pinot wines.
Valley Wine in the Gibbston Valley near Queenstown is one of the many vineyards specialising in making Pinot Noir for customers across the world. Winemaker Jen Parr says the wine they produce reflects the region.
The soils are very fertile around us. If you go for a wander, you'll find sage, wild thyme, rosehip, rosemary. It's just a cornucopia of garrigue spice, and you see that in the perfume in the wine.
Parr takes her hat off to wine pioneer Alan Brady, who now lives in nearby Cromwell and experimented with growing grapes in the region 40 years ago.
Grant Taylor, my dear friend and the owner of Valley, was the first to win a prestigious international trophy when he was working with Alan Brady at Gibbston Valley. And that helped not only put New Zealand and Central Otago on the international stage, but certainly this tiny little fertile valley of Gibbston.
It's a long way from her first job selling financial software for the US-born Kiwi, but her love for winemaking has borne fruit with 5 trophies now under her belt. She believes the wine produced here embodies everything a Pinot Noir should be.
All that Gibbston is textbook for that. So it's about fragrance, it's about perfume, it's about this sense of flow and just wonderful exuberance in the glass that's still quite restrained, yet generous.
But rather than just talking about it, she agrees the best way to enjoy a Pinot is to experience the taste firsthand.
It's really hard to explain unless you actually pick it up and put it in a glass, but I think that resonates for everyone who really loves Pinot Noir.
In Gibbston, the South Today.
Like many events, the New Zealand International Film Festival has been impacted by COVID-19, forcing the Auckland season to be cancelled. However, southern audiences will still get to see this year's movie selection on the big screen.
The show must go on, in most places at least, with only Tamaki Makaurau missing out on this year's leg of the New Zealand International Film Festival.
Well, Auckland is a significant part of our program usually, but we did want to go. We didn't think cancelling the whole event was necessary, since we can do things in the rest of the country.
The full program for Whānau Marama, the New Zealand International Film Festival, has been announced for its Dunedin season. Audiences can choose from more than 90 feature films sourced from 37 different countries.
I think if you look in the program and you search by country, you'll find every part of the globe represented.
The 17-day festival features screenings at both the Regent Theatre and Rialto Cinema from early November. Chairwoman Catherine Fitzgerald says cancellation of the Auckland event was a major blow, but organisers are keen to showcase the movies to as many people as possible.
I have to say 2020 used up our rainy day pot of reserves, and so we want to be here to live another day and to be here next July as well. And so I think it's a year where we'd really ask the people who fund us, which is the audience, to really think about how they can fund us this year, which is come and enjoy it.
Many of this year's movies have won major awards around the globe. Dunedin's gala opening night will feature Dame Jane Campion's new film, The Power of the Dog, partially shot in Dunedin.
We have prize winners going back to February 2020 from Berlin. So we've got 2 lots of Berlin, 2 lots of Cannes, 2 lots of Venice to draw on. So there's the most spectacular program I think we've ever had.
The festival will also entertain audiences in Wellington and Christchurch. And despite COVID seating restrictions, Dunedin's Regent Theatre retains its title as the biggest venue on the film festival's schedule. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Coming up after the break on Southern Newsweek, artists meet the public at the annual Wanaka Labour Weekend art show, and we bring you a delicious recipe for a banana smoothie. Welcome back. International rally driver Emma Gilmour was set to take on some of the world's best in Italy. Meanwhile, she's still waiting in the queue to come back to New Zealand.
Emma Gilmour is charged up and ready for round 2 of the Extreme E Series. The electric off-road motor racing competition hits Italy this weekend.
The course looks like it's going to be really challenging, quite different from Greenland. The surfaces are very dry and dirt, with a bit of gravel and sand in a few spots, but largely hard-packed dirt.
The Extreme E Series is split between male and female rally drivers. Gilmour and male counterpart Stefan Sarrazin are currently 7th place on the leaderboard, after making their debut in Greenland earlier this year. The pair are hoping to get off to a good start, with few opportunities to pass on this course.
The track is very much sort of one line, so you sort of have to keep to that, so it's going to be really quite difficult to overtake.
The UK's Molly Taylor and Swiss driver Johan Kristoffersen currently lead the competition. Gilmour's enjoying being behind the wheel of a world-leading electric SUV rally car. But New Zealand's MIQ process is proving a major bump in the road.
My partner Brendan played the lottery for the 5th time for me on Thursday, and once again we didn't have any joy, so chances of getting home for Christmas are getting slimmer and slimmer, but I'll keep my fingers crossed, and maybe rules around MIQ might start to change.
For now, it's pedal to the metal for Gilmour, as her Veloce racing team look to take their 400 kilowatt Odyssey 21 to success in Sardinia. In Dunedin, the South Today.
More than 300 artworks were on display at this year's Labour Weekend Art Show in Wanaka. Some of the artists were also on hand giving demonstrations and explaining their creative techniques to the public.
Wanaka's annual Labour Weekend art exhibition drew hundreds of visitors to the Lake Wanaka Centre, with 6 local artists available to discuss their work with the public. Painters Kate Boswell and Julia Sternkopf have both arrived in the area recently and draw inspiration from the central Otago landscapes.
Moving to New Zealand has inspired me to become an artist. I love the mountains around here and I want to paint them for the rest of my life if I can.
We moved here about a year and a half ago and I've been painting my landscapes since then.
On the other hand, pastel artist Kym Beaton, who was featured in an episode of the TV series Put Some Colour in Your Life, finds inspiration from scenery and events further afield.
I've been doing artworks recently of seaside, water images and harking back to my Australian heritage.
Meanwhile, collage artists Robin Brisker and Jenny Hill both use a unique assortment of items and media to tap into their creativity.
There's jars of buttons, old books, watercolours on top. There's a collage using all the old music things from old catalogue, old wallpaper, old stamps, old buttons.
This is encaustic medium, so it's beeswax and diamond resin. Everything's heated up. I'm just putting some clear layers over my papers.
So I use this as one of my mediums to layer my photos and papers into the wax.
The 6 artists are all in different stages in their career, with jeweller Amy Bixby busy selling commissioned pieces, while Kate Costello is just starting out.
I specialise in portraiture. All of my pictures based off like people that I know. Like this is my little sister, and a wee pig toy that she used to cart around with her for years and years when we were little.
Everything I make is handmade by myself from start to finish, and work in a variety of metals and rare and unique kind of gemstones, semi-precious.
This year's show featured more than 300 entries, up about 30% on previous years. In Wanaka, the South today.
An Otago University student has created a delicious frozen dessert made with old bananas. Emily Stewart won the Premier Award at the recent Audacious Showcase for her natural ice cream style treat.
A business pitch with a tasty hook. Third-year Otago student Emily Stewart has been juggling her science and commerce studies with developing a cool new dessert in her home kitchen.
Frozen bananas resemble the consistency of ice cream, and we pride ourselves on no monkey business. So we take real ingredients and make a delicious new food product from bananas that otherwise would have been a waste.
She says while many brown bananas are thrown away, that's when they're at their sweetest, with many nutrients and antioxidants. Stewart's Zilla Nice Cream was one of the finalists at last night's Audacious Showcase organised by Startup Dunedin, with her frozen samples in hot demand.
It was great to see that all the judges really enjoyed it, and it was quite funny to see them almost fighting over the different flavours. I think peanut butter flavour was the most popular option.
Other options being developed include raspberry and white chocolate and cookies and cream. Stewart won 4 awards last night, including People's Choice, and recommends the program to other young entrepreneurs.
I would encourage any student to take on Audacious. You learn such a wide range of skills and really sets you up with the building blocks to perhaps take on your own business.
There's a number of steps to go before we'd see the banana dessert in supermarkets, but with plenty of willing taste testers, she's excited to see where Zilla Nice Cream can go. In Dunedin, the South today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz. And you can follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Like and subscribe to be notified of Southern news as it happens. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.